How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 cheap cars that you can buy for under £2,000 that I think are massively underrated. I did this video before at under £5,000 and I asked you guys for 1,000 likes and you delivered, so here we are with the under £2,000 video. Could we do this video at under £1,000? I'm not sure we can, but if you do, hit the like button and let's get this to 2,000 likes this time. Don't forget that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and don't forget that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that good stuff is important to remember. If you enjoy this kind of content and want to see more like it, do hit subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And don't forget to comment down below to let me know your thoughts on the video and the cars that I have selected. But without further ado, let's get into the video. I've spoken about the Fiat Panda 100 HP before, but I still don't think it gets the credit it deserves. It has a 1.4 litre inline-4 engine which puts out 100 brake horsepower, funnily enough, and it will get to 60 in 9.2 seconds, making it the slowest car on this list. Owners don't just complain about the speed, they also complain about the ride quality on these, saying it's properly stiff as a car to drive. However, that can be overlooked when you realise this is effectively an Abarth Panda, despite the lack of badging. 6-speed manual transmission, the more aggressive body kit on an already unique looking car, disc brakes all around, and the clearly much stiffer suspension setup mean that it's a much sportier offering than anyone thought a Panda should be. I actually think a lot of Abarths outside of the 500 get overlooked, like the Grande Punto and Punto Evo, as well as the 124, when in reality they are all pretty cool offerings, and the Panda appears to suffer from the same issue. These start at around £1,800, and of course you'll still be looking at pretty high miles for that kind of money. Electric power steering has been known to fail on these, and owners suggest keeping a watchful eye on coolant, oil and the timing belt. Outside of that, reliability isn't supposed to be too horrendous. When the GR Yaris came out, people that weren't fans and even some that were criticised it for ultimately being a Yaris. But those people are forgetting that Yaris has had at least some kind of sporty offering since the very beginning, with the Yaris T-Sport being the prime example. It has a 1.5 litre inline-4 engine with variable valve timing which makes 103 brake horsepower, and it will do 0 to 60 in 8.7 seconds. So yes, our version in the UK is a little sedate when compared to hot hatches that we see today, but in Japan the JDM example came with a turbo and was much more aggressive. They do both still share a close ratio gearbox and a stiffer suspension and chassis setup to make the car handle that much better. It's also cheap to run and insure, even for young drivers, so it gets you into owning a sportier car sooner in your driving career, and it has plenty of modifying potential. These start at around £1,000, and at £2,000 you'll be looking at a 2003 model with around 80,000 miles on the clock. If I haven't sold this grossly underrated car to you already, the final point is reliability, as owners gas these up so much for being rock solid. It helps with their Toyotas, of course. I think this car is slowly starting to get the love it deserves, but the Alfa Romeo GTV and Spider is a properly cool car that goes relatively under the radar here in the UK. For 2k you'll only be able to afford the twin-spark 2 litre inline-4 engine which produces 150 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 8.2 seconds. But that's not too big a deal, as though this car does sound amazing as a V6, the looks remain the same between engines, and it's those looks that really do it for me. Designed by Pininfarina, it looks absolutely stunning, and earlier in 2021 I actually saw a Spider being displayed at the London Classic Car Show, so it's clearly reaching its classic status already. The Spider's cover for the soft top is one of my favourite little features on this car too, as I just think it looks so classy with how flush it sits onto the car. These start at the £1,400 mark for GTVs, and Spiders are slightly rarer in this price range. Either way, you'll likely have a bit of a project on your hands. Be wary of the known oil pump and oil leak issues associated with this engine, and thermostats can also fail, causing overheating, leading to head gasket failure in extreme cases. The Citroen C2 VTS is an underrated car, I think, because it doesn't set the world alight in terms of looks, but it does embody cheap and cheerful warm hatches for me, taking over the mantle from the Citroen Saxo VTS that came before it, and many people now consider to be a pretty desirable classic car. It has a 1.6 litre inline-4 engine which makes 125 brake horsepower, and it will do 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. And it's followed the Saxo into being a popular car in entry-level motorsports, as it's used in both rallycross and track series here in the UK. The car does require minor modifications for safety, of course, but the rest of it remains pretty stock, which is interesting as some reviews say the steering does feel a little bit light. I think in the future this will do what the Saxo did and reach a place that seems silly for old small hatchbacks to be. I don't think they'll reach the same heights as the Saxo, so, but they're still worth a look. They start at around $1,000, and for double that you get a 2008 model around 70,000 miles on the clock. There are known issues with rust around the rear and wearing suspension mounting points, as well as some of the sensors dying. The modern Ford Fiesta STs are very popular cars, even if they've become a bit of a meme in some cases. The ST150, however, despite me banging on about it, is underrated when compared to its younger siblings. It has a 2-litre inline-4 engine which makes 147 brake horsepower, and it will do 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds, and it offers the perfect platform for anyone looking to buy and build a cheap track day car. A set of nice brake pads and tyres and you're sorted, but you could of course take it a whole lot further with these. Ultimately though, for me the Mark I Ford Focus RS is one of the best looking fast forwards of the 21st century, and the Fiesta ST is a baby version of it in terms of styling, yet despite this, the Focus RS continues to climb in price, while the ST is still available for as little as £1,700, with £2,000 netting a 2007 model with around 100,000 miles on the clock. I think too many of us are sleeping on what is ultimately a really cool and capable little warm hatch. The timing chain tensioners are the key problems on these, as well as throttle bodies and the gearboxes not being too strong. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe as well. I think it's like 80% of you aren't subscribed to watch these videos, so make sure you do subscribe. It really helped me out, and also trying to hit that 100k, and we're super close, so let's get it. I've spoken many times about the Fabia VRS, but they've already garnered plenty of respect amongst car people. The Octavia VRS, however, particularly the first gen, is a properly nice looking car with some aggressive styling and a hallowed 1.8 litre turbocharged inline-4 block, which makes 180 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 7.6 seconds. This car was the first VRS car, and though it's RS everywhere else in the world, Ford's lawyers didn't want Skoda to use RS here in the UK as they were using it on the Focus. On release, it wasn't hugely appealing when compared to competitors like the Mondeo ST, which I think is why it's been overlooked all these years. Skoda even released a 100 limited edition WRC models to commemorate the car running in the World Rally Championship, but even then, this saloon in estate didn't get much of a look in. However, that 1.8 litre turbo block is well known at this point and offers plenty more potential than the 180 brake horsepower that it puts out, and the handling is also known to be very solid on this car. These start at around £1,200, but they are quite old, which means they will generally have pretty high miles still at the 2k mark. Owners note the interiors on these are a little underwhelming and can rattle, and the engine is known for having coil pack issues as well as water pump problems, but relatively easy and cheap to repair. I'm personally guilty of overlooking Saab as a brand, and the 9.3 Aero, which was built to rival cars like the 3 Series and C-Class, is one of those cars. For under 2k, we'll be looking at a 2 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine which makes 207 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 7.4 seconds. This is the second generation 9.3, and it's pretty heavily related to the Vauxhall Vectra. It comes in multiple different body styles with the saloon, estate and the convertible, and personally I'd be after that drop top as I think it looks so good with the elongated doors. I think this is underrated for a different reason to the other cars on this list. It's basically because here in the UK we all think of BMW, Mercedes, Audi and the likes when it comes to executive saloons, but Saab were quietly making their own competitors in the market which still look pretty good today. These start at around £1,400 and you'll still be looking at pretty high miles at the 2k mark. There are no issues with the throttle body, the recirculation motor behind the dashboard and the coil springs are known to break too. This is another car that is aging like a fine wine, and it has clearly had a period where no one was a fan and is now coming out the other side. It's the Mercedes SLK, specifically the 230 with the 2.3 litre supercharged inline-4 which makes 197 brake horsepower and will get to 60 in 7 seconds. It's basically a baby SL, with SLK standing for sporty, light and short, as the German for short is kurz, so it's an SL short, and this reflects in the aesthetics. You'll only get an auto for our budget, but the reason why I think it's underrated has nothing to do with performance. Look at any old SL, and in fact the vast majority of classic Mercs, even as recent as the 1990s, they are surging upwards in price and popularity. The SLK I reckon will be on the same trajectory, as those that have been looked after will become hugely desirable, and those that haven't been will be dragged up in price accordingly. Currently they start at around £1,300, you get a 1999 model around 80,000 miles on the clock for £2,000. Rust, engine oil contamination, electrical issues and the hardtop convertible roof are the issues that have been noted by owners on forums, so worth looking out for if you're in the market for one. Just missing out on the top spot on this list is the car with the biggest engine, the Lexus LS430, which is a 4.3 litre V8 that makes 278 brake horsepower and will go from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. In the world of luxury cars, I would say Lexuses in general are underrated, given their Toyota's luxury brand. People forget that Toyota makes some of the most reliable cars out there, and the LS430 lives up to that, with owners suggesting suggesting it will keep going and going as long as you look after it and do the necessary preventative maintenance on the transmission. It's a car with a strong cult following, but the mainstream doesn't respect it in the way that I think it should. It was literally designed with an interior based off of a Four Seasons hotel room, and the seats are inspired by first class BA plane ones. Though yes, it's dated, it's also just cool, the kind of car that you'd feel like a boss driving around just because you're one of the ones in the know. These start at £2,000 though, sadly, and they're relatively hard to get a hold of. In my video on cheap luxury cars, I said if I get 15,000 likes, I would buy a luxury car for £2,000 to see what it's like, and this is probably the one I would go for. I've got a weird one taking the top spot, given it's a car that pretty much everyone knows, the first generation Audi TT, specifically with the 1.8 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, making 221 brake horsepower and managing 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds. The reason why I've included it is because for many years it was overlooked, with people preferring Mark IIs and Mark IIIs. Only recently people started to consider these as potential future classics, with classic car websites and magazines beginning to include articles on which TTs might be better or worse to buy as investments. But given this car's flexibility in that it could be a nice daily, a track car, a classic car or a weekend cruiser, I really rate it highly. And it was massive for getting Audi into the two-seater sports car market, and yes, I know the coupes have 4 seats, but try sitting in the rear. These are listed for a minimum of around £1,000, and for 2k you'll still be looking at high miles. Coil packs, electrical issues and alternator failures are the key problems to look out for on these, but ultimately they remain relatively cheap to run with that 1.8T. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on my picks as well as the video just more broadly. Massive thank you to the patrons as always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.